Okay. Good evening, people. As my initials say, they are like, they stand for MS. So I am the MS, which means Mssi Sanket. As the MSSI National Joint Treasurer, I welcome you all for the fourth and the last of the webinar series held on the occasion of the World MS Day 2022. So now, as you all know, that the earlier topics were all with connecting with the doctors. We have decided that the topic for the today's webinar is more focused on multiple sclerosis and its advocacy. And just as advocacy needs a hell lot of patience, we require your patience and attention throughout this webinar, as there will be, as you can see, a total of 11 people speaking, and that includes me, of course. So we hope to wrap it up in less than 2 hours. So a special request is to keep yourself on mute and video in the off mode, except for the speakers, so that the speakers are not disturbed. And if you have any question in your mind, please feel free to get to the chat box, use the chat box or raise an option at the end. We have a question and answer session at the end of it. So without wasting any more further time, let's start with the introduction of MSSI, which will be given by Anne Gonzalez. Javed, can you put on the slide? Till Javed sir puts on the slide, a little brief about Anne ma'am. She is one of our MSSI senior most member. Now, Anne Gonzalez, she's a retired banker by profession. She started the MSSI Chennai chapter in 1997. She has been the chairperson of the chapter for several years and is currently a secretary. She has been a member of the board of the MS International Federation London for 3 years and also has been on the position of the vice president of MSSI for several years. Under her guidance, a support group in Puducherry and Trivandrum had been started, and Trivandrum is now a full-fledged chapter of MSSI. She is also involved in the several other NGOs as a treasurer and also serves on the Sexual Harassment Board of Women in the Workplace at the Accountants General Office of Tamil Nadu, as also the Southern Railway General Manager's Office. Over to you, Anne ma'am. You can start off with the introduction.
Yeah. Thank you, Sanket, for the good introduction that you gave me. And good evening to all my friends and well-wishers of the Multiple Sclerosis Society of India. My name is Anne Gonzalez, and as Sanket introduced me, I'm currently involved with the Chennai chapter over the last 25 years. Multiple Sclerosis Society of India was started in the year 1985 with well-wishers as well as families of the multiple sclerosis disease. As you know, Mrs. Sheila Chitnis is one of the co-founder members of the Multiple Sclerosis Society of India, as well as the late Mr. Tabakawala and the late Mr. Randeria. Today, we have 9 chapters all over India with a head office at Mumbai. Our chapters consist of Mumbai, Delhi, Kolkata, Pune, Hyderabad, Bangalore, Chennai, Indore, with a support group at Puducherry. The chapters all belong to the national group, which is known as Multiple Sclerosis Society of India. But we are autonomous in the fact that we raise our own funds and have our own programs and meet the needs and expectations of our MS persons at the chapter level, whatever we can do. The Multiple Sclerosis Society of India is affiliated to the Multiple Sclerosis International Federation, known as MSIF, headquartered in London. It is 55 years old and has a membership of 47 and over countries. Their vision is a world without MS, and their mission is to see that collaboration, research, and documentation go into the cause and treatment of MS, as well as to make a quality of life for people who are having MS. Multiple Sclerosis Society of India at national and chapter level reach out to all people with MS, irrespective of caste, creed, kind, race, etc. All the chapters, including the head office, we reach out to the patients by trying to get the consultations with doctors, fix appointments, give them medicines, reimburse medical fees, reimburse medicines, physiotherapy, home visits for housebound people. We also help with scholarships for the children, to try to get employment from them, yoga sessions, meditation, name it. We try to reach out to them in any possible way we can. At the moment, awareness, which is advocacy, is our prime target. And in order to create awareness of multiple sclerosis, we have two grand events through the year. One is World MS Day, which we observe in February, the first Sunday of February. And the second is World MS Day, which we observe on the 30th of May every year. India MS Day was started by one of our MS persons, and also a very important committee member, Mrs. Jyoti Um Bajpal of Pune chapter. And for the last several years, we observe it in whatever way we can, with bicycle rides, cycle rides, seminars, webinars, fun activities, etc., to highlight to everybody in India that there is such a disease as MS, and we need to create an awareness about MS to strengthen our database. World MS Day, we've just passed by on the 30th of May. Again, all the chapters observed it in whatever way they could. Now, this webinar is one of those events that were earmarked for World MS Day. Some chapters had fun, frolic, food at malls. Some had seminars, some had lighting of important buildings, etc. We reach out to create awareness in whatever way is possible. Because as you know, MS is a rare disease, a little still is known about it. So this is the purpose of India MS Day and World MS Day. A remarkable feature in our walk towards creating awareness is when the RPWD Act was passed and MS was included in the 21 disabilities, more as a health disability. Now with MS being included in the RPWD Act of 2016, most of our chapters or all our chapters are reaching out to MS persons to get a disability card, then the UDID card, so that ultimately we can see to it that the benefits from the state government as well as the central government reach out to our needy MS brethren. As you know, getting a disability card is not a very easy feature with the government, but headway is being made with constant badgering the head of various state ministries, etc., and involving ourselves in webinars with the powers that be, so that all our efforts will bear fruit and all our MS persons can get disability cards, which will ultimately be of benefit to all of them. MSSI has one program in mind, and that is one big program in mind more than advocacy, and that is also to create a national database. According to the medical fraternity, more than 2 lakh people in India have MS, but in the books of MSSI, head office and the chapter, there's hardly 2% who are registered as MS persons. Why this gap? Well, as you know, there's a lot of stigma attached to MS because it affects young girls in the prime of their life, young people, more women than men in the prime of their life. So given our society's culture, people hesitate to come forward to register the young girls, particularly the MS persons. Slowly, the stigma is wearing away, and a day will come, we hope, when we will be able to increase our number of registered MSPs. Over the last few years, particularly in the year 2021, we had started an online program called Numbers Matter. Then again followed up by an online program, Am I Counted? All these have been made to focus on the need to increase the numbers who are registering themselves in the books of the MSSI chapters, to be able to show we have a database that can benefit and have talks directly with the state government authority or with the national authorities. Our firm aim is to be able to increase our numbers so that we can talk to our health authorities with authority, badger them to give us whatever facilities they can give us. Also, affordable medical treatment. As you know, MS is a costly disease and treatment is very expensive. So the more numbers we have in our books, the more awareness we create, the more we can go to the government officials and talk to them and ensure that we get whatever we can to help the MS person. The aim of Multiple Sclerosis Society at national and chapter levels is a lifelong relationship when an MS person comes into our fold. And our aim is to turn a life sentence for an MS person into a life. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne ma'am, for the lovely introduction of MSSI. Now we quickly move on to our World MS Day rep, Anjali Vyas, who needs no introduction as everybody knows her. Over to you, Anjali, for one final and last words on World MS Day 2022.
God, don't say that these are the last words, because I'm sure that we will have many more such campaigns to come and sessions to come. Thank you, Anne ma'am, for that brilliant background of what MSSI does. I mean, you have really very well articulated everything in a very short time. Yes, we have had our advocacy campaigns of Numbers Matter and Am I Counted? But today, let me tell you all, why exactly do we celebrate the World MS Day? My name is Anjali Vyas, and I'm a person living with multiple sclerosis, also the World MS Day representative for the Multiple Sclerosis Society of India. The World MS Day is officially observed on 30th of May. The World MS Day is the MS movement's annual campaign to raise awareness on the condition MS and to support and connect the 2.8 million people living with MS worldwide. It is a day to celebrate global solidarity and hope for a better future with MS. Do you know that the first World MS Day was initiated by the MS International Federation in 2009 to become and be a part of the global MS movement? The World MS Day is always celebrated and is followed by a particular theme. And for this year, as well as next year, we are following the World MS Day theme as #MS Connections. The MS Connections campaign is all about building community and connection with either oneself, connection with the community, connections to quality care, and engaging with other stakeholders when it comes to doing advocacy around multiple sclerosis. Why do we really do this campaign and follow this campaign of MS Connections? Because this connections is the campaign #MS Connections is all about challenging social barriers and stigma that can leave people affected by MS feeling lonely and isolated. It will help us, the persons with MS, as well as the community and the organizations that work for the welfare of persons with MS, build, support, and nurture people affected by MS. It is all about promoting self-care and healthy living with MS. It is all about connecting people affected by MS to MS research, and most importantly, lobbying with decision makers for better services and effective advocacy and treatment for persons with MS. We have been following the theme for the World MS Day #MS Connections since the past 2 years. In 2019, in 2020, we did the MS Connections campaign by engaging and involving with oneself. Through the Mandala art, the MS Society of India and its initiative won many hearts across the globe. In 2021, we engaged and connected with our caregivers, which are the very primary people in our lives whom we solely depend on. And this year, we are here to connect with all the decision makers, organizations, and those DPOs that work for the welfare of persons with disabilities, and all those experts in advocacy who can help MS Society of India and also the persons with MS do and pursue a better advocacy. There were many ways through which we did this campaign. One of the most effective way of doing that, the campaign, was to make an MS heart. An MS heart, which is inspired by a sign language for the word together. The MS heart is a symbol of solidarity with everyone affected by MS. And how do we do that? We connect here our hands, or you can maybe connect one of your hands with the hand of the other person. Find a friend and create an MS heart by just making a shape of a heart. We also did webinars, organized virtual events, activities, fundraisers, and also got featured in so many news channels for all our campaigns and initiatives in the World MS Day activities. We also had a very interesting way of expressing our solidarity and celebrating the MS Connections by the way of the Global MS Choir. Yes, you heard that right. In the spirit of MS Connections, we gathered people from across the globe to sing together on World MS Day. Since the past 2 years, we have been singing together, and it was through the initiative of MS International Federation. And we called this year also everyone from the MS Connections movement, and not just the people affected with MS, but also their caregivers, their friends, and all our supporters to be the part of this global choir, sing and enjoy and welcome everybody, be a part of this global MS movement. This is the reason why today we have gathered, as quoted by Sanket sir and also all our members here, for the last session on the World MS Day, to celebrate the World MS Day, to observe the World MS Day by connecting and seeking guidance and suggestions, and to have a very nice path to follow on advocacy. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak to you all. And I'm looking forward to this wonderful session today on advocacy and MS.
Hey, thanks, Anjali. Next, we move on to Javed Hassan, the MSSI National Advocacy Director, to quickly share the journey of MSSI in advocacy. Over to you, Javed.
Thank you, Sanket. Ms. M has already covered and gave a brief about the MSI and its work. Here, I am going to focus only on the advocacy journey in last couple of years. So as you know, MSI is a 32-year-old organization, and it was working on, am I audible? Am I
Yes,
audible?
Yes, Javed. Yes,
Okay.
Javed. Yeah.
Yes.
So since last 3 decades, MSI is working to improve the quality of life of MS persons. And after 3 decades, MSI realized that we must add a component of advocacy to its work. And the idea came immediately after the RPWD Act, when the multiple sclerosis was added in the RPWD Act. When we did the assessment, and we realized that there are still few gaps which need to be fulfilled. And then based on the experience from the field, when we interacted with the MSPs, then we realized that there is a gap in the current RPWD Act. And from that point, our advocacy initiative started. So in the year 2018, MSI, with the support of MSIF, Multiple Sclerosis International Federation, is an international organization based out of UK. In consultation with MSIF, we developed the roadmap for advocacy initiative in India. And then in 2020, MSI launched its first ever campaign called Reassess MS. And in 2021, MSI launched another campaign called Numbers Matter. So I will discuss in my coming slides. Okay, so the idea of Reassess MS campaign came when we reviewed the current assessment guideline. Then we realized that there are still need and there is scope for improvement, because the assessment guideline was not fulfilling all the criteria of MS person, especially those who are having invisible symptoms. So we assessed all those situations, and then we also came to know from our members that when they are going and visiting the hospitals, they are not being assessed in a proper way. There are many reasons, like there is lack of understanding even amongst the doctor how to assess. So that a kind of discrimination is also there, because in MS patient you will find many invisible symptoms, and if the person is going healthy, so they think that you are fit and fine, so you don't need the disability certificate or UDID card. So it starts from the discrimination, and then it also depends that whether the neurologists are available at the assessment center, or the officials, they are completely aware about the assessment guideline of the RPWS. So there are n number of issues. So we thought, why not we start a campaign called Reassess MS. So we want to basically reassess the guideline so that more and more MS person could avail the benefit under RPWD Act. We also developed a broad guideline in consultation with our medical and scientific advisory committee, which consists of leading neurologists in India. So we developed the recommendation, and also we submitted that to the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment and Ministry of Health. And still we are waiting for the response, and follow-up is going on in this direction. Through that campaign, we also built alliances with the wider disability sector in India. We also could reach to the health professional. We invited leading neurologists, and we also engaged them in our campaign to reach all the key stakeholders. And this campaign was on social media, so we could reach a large number of key stakeholder and other segment of society, so that we could create more awareness on multiple sclerosis, as well as we could do some policy advocacy so that government could hear our voice and make some amendment in the current assessment guidelines. So when we were doing this campaign, that time we realized that on the one hand, we are saying that we want to reassess the current guideline. But if we see practically, when we are going to the government offices or we are going to ministries, they simply ask on what basis you are asking to make changes and all. So everywhere numbers matter, because in India we don't have any number. We don't have any national registry. We don't have any mechanism to capture the number of MS persons. So that idea came from the first campaign, that we must also highlight that numbers really matter. We don't have any prevalence incidence of MS person in India. We have only the estimation, which says approximately 2 lakh MS persons are living in India. But that also is the tip of iceberg, because that is just an estimation. We don't know. We have not even touched the rural belt, because there are a number of challenges like accessibility and referral mechanism. So we don't have that kind of mechanism, and also the accessibility and affordability also matter in this case, especially in case of MS. So our ask is whether those who are living with MS are counted somewhere. So we took that idea and started another campaign called Numbers Matter. Their key prominent speakers were part of the campaign, and during that campaign we also submitted a letter to the ICMR, and they have though they have already initiated the discussion and some pilot assignments going on in few hospitals, but still our ask is the government is doing that registration process in the government hospital, but what about the private hospitals? Because in our case, as per MSI findings, even approximately 70% of MS persons, they are seeking treatment in the private hospitals, and remaining 30% they are seeking treatment in the government hospital. So that mechanism is being developed in the government hospital. So if it is going to be a government-based hospital management system, hospital MIS management information system, then how it will help the private player, how we can connect the government as well as private sector. So our ask is also to include the private hospital so that we could get exact number, accurate number. So through that campaign, we could reach to more than 80,000 people through Facebook, and also we started. We also launched our India MS map, where we could register 2,400 plus MSPs on our India MS map. Okay, so she is Anjali Vyas, our MS person of 2021. And she took the initiative to start the online petition, Am I Counted?, where we got more than 5,800 plus signatures through online petition, and that was also submitted to ICMR along with the letter with our recommendation to include the private hospital in the national database mechanism. So this was the overall journey of MSI in last couple of years, and we are, whatever we have initiated, we are following up on them. We have other areas which we are exploring, and in coming year, we will add few more areas to our advocacy initiative. So thank you very much. And this is the last India MS map, which I already described. Thank you very much. Over to you, Sanket.
Yeah, thanks, Javed, for sharing this wonderful journey of MSSI and advocacy so far. Javed sir, can you please share that speaker slide again? Next, I would hand over to Smita Sadashivan, who will introduce you to all the eminent speakers we have invited. And now a bit of Smita. Smita herself is a cross-disability inclusion and accessibility consultant with MSSI from Chennai. She is a consultant with the Election Commissioner of India, New Delhi, and the Disability Department of Tamil Nadu government. She is the member of Tamil Nadu State Advisory Board under RPWD Act. And as well as she's on a member of the different disability forums, including the Disability Rights Alliance of Tamil Nadu and the National Committee for the Rights of Persons with Disability at NCPEDP. She is also one of the mentors at the Javed Habibi Fellowship Program at the NCPEDP at New Delhi. So over to you, Smita. The floor is all yours from now.
Thank you very much, Sanket, and good evening, everyone. So we have a line of eminent speakers to talk about, different advocacy strategies and advocacy initiatives that have been happening across the disability sector in the country. And without much delay, I would like to introduce our first speaker, who is Mr. T.D. Daryal. Mr. Daryal holds master's degree in economics and business administration from the University of Hull, UK. He served in various ministries as a civil servant for more than 3 decades, and the closest to us is he has served as member secretary of Rehabilitation Council of India and also State Commissioner for Persons with Disabilities, Government of Delhi till 2019. He passed many landmark orders on various thematic areas such as certification, accessibility, inclusive education, livelihood, social security, etc., which resulted in better implementation of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016. He was disability consultant for evaluating all the schemes of Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities under Niti Aayog, Government of India. He was also the national consultant on disability issues in India for the UN SCAP. He compiled judgments on disability issues and contributed in bringing on publications on human rights regime for persons with disabilities. He's also a guest faculty in the Institute of Public Administration. Recently, the Honorable Supreme Court of India has directed the central and all state governments to implement the order passed by Mr. Daryal on the appointment of special educators for implementing inclusive education in the country. He is currently the president of NAB Delhi, executive director, CABE Foundation, and disability advisor, CBM India. So here we are going to hear from Mr. Daryal about the entitlements for persons with multiple sclerosis in the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act. We know that multiple sclerosis has been included in the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act, whereas what are our entitlements? What do we have? What do we don't have? And what is the scope for improvement? So here you go, Mr. T.D. Daryal.
Good evening, everybody, once more. Thank you, Smita ji, for a very elaborate introduction. I think one important part was, I have been Deputy Chief Commissioner for Persons with Disabilities since 2002. And that is where that appointment decided my career path to remain and continue working in disability sector and resign from the government as a civil servant. So that was a very crucial post. Okay, thank you for this. And thank you for inviting me, giving me this opportunity to interact with this very, very enlightened and very knowledgeable group. And also many of you are primary stakeholders in this particular matter. I have been asked to finish it in 10 minutes, and that's what I will try to do. I think most important thing for MS people, persons with MS, is that the disability has been included. This is one part of it. The other part of the inclusion, how it has affected is, which I personally thought is a big gap, is that it does not did not consider persons with MS to be included, to be the beneficiaries in reservation in jobs. That is the most important thing. Unless you have job, so it becomes so difficult to get a rightful place in the society, in the family. That's one. Why it wasn't, we'll discuss about that. Probably, you see, and another thing is the assessment. You have already taken up with the government for reassess. Assessment, I don't know, I'm not aware about what all things, why you went reassessment, why did you, what all things have you mentioned in that. My observation is that the assessment of MS, they say the MS is manifested in two ways. In locomotor disability, because of neurological disorder, and another is mental illness. This is where I am very, very, I'm not clear about it. The people who are with MS probably would be able to, when I say mental illness and neurological disorder, then the government's thinking, or anybody's thinking about this, is that the person having this condition would not be able to concentrate on the job. That is the reason why the MS is not included in the categories that will be entitled to reservation in government jobs. So whether it is true or not, see, there are only two reasons why a particular disability, why those 6 disabilities have not been included. Either those disabilities, say blood disorder, people with those disabilities are good enough to find a job in the job market. They don't need any, say, positive discrimination or reservation. Or the disability is such that the people having those disabilities would not be able to perform the job of various posts, or rather, I would say any post. That's the reason. Then, therefore, we can identify a post for them, and therefore, reservation. There is no purpose giving reservations. So that is what I have both areas. But as far as the first thing is concerned, that many people have been asking me when I was state commissioner or something in Delhi chapter, particularly, have been attending, have been associated with. They said we should be getting reservation, we should be included. So you cannot be included, MS cannot be included in the list of categories of disabilities to which that reservation will be applicable until the Act is amended. Section 34 of the RPWD Act has to be amended, then only. And it cannot, the government cannot do it right now. It is only in the parliament that can happen. So for that, one advocacy point could be that to give me, okay, ये जब होगा वो देखा जाएगा, but तभी मुझे आप priority दीजिए. That is one. Another is assessment. I think assessment is a very technical aspect. I can't comment on that, but then the assessment, I feel, I have no data, I have no knowledge about it, but I feel that a person with MS not necessarily will have those mental illness issues. Mental illness issues could be with any other person, any disability. So why you segregate this? So when you assess me because of assess me for MS due to neurological disorder, then you assess my locomotor disability. Now, locomotor disability or muscular dystrophy, whatever, then you give me, okay, I'm this much deficient or this much disability. Then will you give me a disability certificate of locomotor disability, one arm affected, two arm affected, this affected or that's affected, I'm on wheelchair, and this category of people get a job reservation. So this is very, very conflicting, inconsistent. So these things need to be highlighted. The other benefits that, so this benefit is not there at all for people with MS, but all other provisions of the Act, protection under the Act, be it social security, be it protection against cruelty, against discrimination, these all things are available. And mind you, that a person should be with benchmark disability, that is 40% or more, to avail any reservation or social security benefits. Now, one important thing for MS people to claim is that 5% reservation in allotment of land and poverty alleviation schemes, and allotment of land for other different purposes, like it could be housing, it could be business, it could be enterprise, it could be recreation, etc. So these things one should take up, we should initiate that dialogue with the concerned authorities, concerned state governments, or there will be a number of authorities within the state government. Say in every area you will have a development authority. Say for example, Delhi Development Authority, it is Bhubaneswar Development Authority, Chennai Development Authority. So those authorities are supposed to make that reservation. So there are many complications, but then that you should revive, and more discussion or a detailed discussion can happen at that stage, what you should actually demand. Then any scheme for social security that a government has, state government, local authority, or national government, central government, have for people in general, then the similar scheme for people with disability must be 25%, must have 25% more. That is what is not happening. It didn't happen despite my writing to the government during COVID-19. What are the benefits that were given to the government, to the people by the government, central government, that were same for all people. So persons with disability should also say, if there is a scheme like that for women, say for women, the women with disabilities must have 25% more. If it is for elderly people in general, then there should be 25% more for people with elderly people with disabilities. These are the major entitlements, and of course, grievance redressal, you can go to the state commissioner, chief commissioner, and also the advocacy is required. We required for designation of authorities, special courts, and prosecutor, where if there is a violation, you can go to the court, you can go to the authorities and get your things done. Then most important thing is free healthcare. free healthcare. There is a provision, there is a mandatory provision in the rights of persons with disabilities that people with disabilities, particularly, of course, here is not the question whether a person is benchmark disability or not benchmark disability. All those are supposed to get free healthcare facilities, of course, depending upon their income. The state government or the central government has to make the scheme, and many of the states do not have that scheme. They say, okay, we'll provide you free health scheme, free healthcare facilities, go to the government hospital or something, but bring a BPL card. That's one. Another important thing that that is in the rural area, most of the people are in rural areas. We have not been able to identify the people in the rural areas everywhere, and therefore we should also have some mechanism within MSSI to ensure that we are able to count, we are able to identify people in the rural areas. One point I want to make, I want to clarify, Mr. Khan was making a point, that is, in advocacy, you have been, because many MS people get treatment in the hospital, and therefore that hospital, private hospital, should also be included as a certifying authority or something, or you are saying take data from there. If we are asking the government to make the private hospital certifying authority, that will not happen because the rules do not provide for that, and also that the authority, certifying authority, has been defined that way. So most important thing is that we need to identify the gaps. All the chapters, have a joint effort, have a central sort of say a forum where you can take up with the central government and go to the right authority. MCCI, you perhaps have taken with this which authority?
ICMR.
ICMR. So not ICMR. ICMR is a research, this thing, it has to go to the Ministry of Health and Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities. There are two authorities which will take a call on that. If they have to refer it to any specialized agency like ICMR, they will do it. So you need to go, we need to go to that, to the ministries. Thank you so much. I think, I don't know whether I exceeded my time, but then I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. T.D. Daryal. And that was really nice to listen to you. And especially you threw light upon the entitlements meant for people with multiple sclerosis under Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016. And you also gave a clarity on the administrative nitty-gritties and the complexities in including people with multiple sclerosis in all the provisions of the Act. Thank you very much for that. And we have the next speaker who would be talking about the advocacy strategies that we can enhance and try from different ends, from all across the chapters, to include persons with multiple sclerosis within all provisions of Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016, or also to ensure that all the human rights are intact or met for people with multiple sclerosis. So I welcome Mr. Rajiv Rathuri. Brief introduction about Mr. Rathuri. He has been working in the corporate sector in India and Kenya for 17 years and moved to the social sector after meeting with an accident, which left him with a visual disability. He now has over 18 years of work experience in the social and development sector with disability rights. Mr. Rajiv is the recipient of Limca Book of Records Persons of the Year Award 2016 and received the National Award for the Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities in 2019. Mr. Rajiv has co-edited a compendium titled Disability and the Law and scripted an educational documentary film on the rights of persons with disabilities. Mr. Rajiv was nominated to the Disability Law Drafting Committee by the Government of India in 2009. He also has experience of having worked in the Asia Pacific region to build the capacity of disabled persons organizations, that is organizations of persons with disabilities, OPDs, to monitor their rights, and has advocated with international human rights monitoring bodies to implement the CRPD. He has also represented the rights of persons with disabilities in several national and international forums, including the United Nations. We welcome you, Rajiv, to the forum, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Smita. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and great to be with all of you once again. I was with the MS group some months back, where Javed had invited me to speak on the rights of persons with disabilities and the UNCRPD. So good to be back with all of you. Mr. Dharyal did lay out the entitlements that are available to people living with multiple sclerosis. And this would be good reason for you to start advocating on. I mean, I did listen to Javed's presentation, and two issues that you've taken up are reassessment and counting numbers. But I think there's scope for you to do more strategies. And how do you make your strategies for advocacy more effective is what I'm going to speak about. So just to start off with, what really is advocacy? So it's really a political process which involves engaging with people to, engage to sort of change policies in favor of people with disabilities, all vulnerable groups basically, and to change resource allocation decisions. The resources matter when it comes to implementing schemes and programs. It can be done by an individual, or it can be done by a large group of people. In your case, MSSI is a large group, so MSSI advocacy as a group. It's basically a deliberate process where you influence policymakers. You deliberately do this process of advocacy so that policymakers who make decisions for people with vulnerable groups, people with disabilities, they can be influenced. And it also relates to defending rights of vulnerable groups. In our case, it relates to defending rights of disabled people. And it also is related to creating public awareness on a particular issue or on a particular set of issues. You create an awareness, like what you're doing as far as your reaccess campaign is concerned, as far as your counting numbers is concerned. So these are all effective advocacy strategies. And it's basically organized activism and lobbying, which is related to a particular set of issues. So this is what basically advocacy means. Now, how do we plan an advocacy strategy and advocacy campaign which is effective? So there is a certain way these campaigns have to be planned, and this is known as the advocacy cycle. So you need to first identify the problem that is being faced by people with multiple sclerosis. There are a lot of problems that we face. We face problems of accessibility. We face problems related to health access. We face issues with certification. Now, we cannot address all these issues at the same time, so we will have to choose what we need to address in our campaign. So once the problem identification has been done, then how do we do it? We need to analyze the problem. What is the problem? What are the reasons this problem is happening? Who is responsible for creating this problem? Is it the society? Is it the government, the policy schemes? So identification of the problem will be done. You really need to identify what the problem is. What is the reason of the problem? What are the consequences of this problem, etc. Once the identification has been done, you need to set objectives to your advocacy campaign. And these objectives have to be very, very specific objectives. They should be measurable in the sense that once the advocacy is over, you should be able to measure what has been the kind of success you achieved. They should be achievable. Don't have advocacy targets which are just not achievable. I mean, there are some targets which are just unachievable. So let's not target for those. And then they have to be very relevant to the context we are in today. Once this is done, you need to do a power analysis. So we've done the identification of the problem. We've done the analysis of the problem. We are now coming to power analysis. Now, power analysis is what? Power analysis is basically identifying the person you need to influence so that you can meet your objective. So this is very, very important, because a lot of the success of your advocacy campaigns, and if it is going to be an effective advocacy campaign, will depend on the kind of power analysis that you do. That who is it that we need to engage with so that policy can be influenced. For this, it is very important for you to identify which kind of stakeholder I need to be talking to for the advocacy. There are high influence and high importance targets. Now, if we are talking about, say, inclusive education for children with disabilities, so who would be of high importance and high influence? So the target who would be of high importance and high influence would be the principal of the school, the district education officer, the Department of Education, which is releasing funds for education. High importance and low importance. Now, as far as students and parents are concerned, they would be of very high importance because they're directly impacted by inclusive education system, but they would be of low importance because what they say is really doesn't matter when it comes to influencing policy. So you need to also look at these issues. There would be also targets who are of high influence but low importance. Now, a teacher, for instance, a teacher is of high importance when it comes to inclusive education, but low influence because she, I'm sorry, she would be a high influence because she could be sort of saying that, no, I can't have disabled children in my class because it is very difficult for me to manage. So she would be of high importance, low importance and high influence. So she could be highly influential in casting a negative aspect to the whole idea of inclusive education. So we need to be very careful when we are identifying targets for advocacy. Then we need to have, what is the message that we want to carry out in our advocacy campaign? You need to look at identifying 3 key messages for your advocacy campaign. Don't have more than 3 messages. If you can have 2, it's good enough. If you have 3, it's fine. What is the problem? And what is the social economic cost of the problem? Now, in this case, if we're looking at inclusive education, so what would be the problem? The problem is that children with disabilities are not getting educated in inclusive schools. Because of this, they are not able to sort of get educated. In the long run, they are not able to find employment. So there is an economic cost to this. This could be a part of your message. Then your message should also include who is responsible for this problem that I am facing today. Is it the principal, or is it the education department, or is it the education department which is not releasing funds for education of children with disabilities? So this could also be part of your message to the campaign. And then you need to finally answer what are your concrete policy demands. What is it that you're wanting as far as inclusive education is concerned? Are you wanting ramps in the school? Are you wanting accessible toilets? So be very clear about what you are wanting. Now, there are 2 kinds of advocacy that you have to do with these targets once you have identified the target for advocacy. Who is it that you're going to be talking to when you're talking about influencing advocacy? So there is this method of insider advocacy where you work with the target. So if it's the principal of the school, you go and meet him, you tell him why children with disabilities need to be part of the mainstream education. Then you talk about the benefits that will come to the school if children with disabilities are part of the education system. And you also tell him how the child with disability will benefit. So this is called insider advocacy, where you meet the target of advocacy and you talk to him, you convince him. And once the meeting is over, then you can also, sort of carry forward this engagement by going to the media and saying that, he's been such a good principal, he's listening to us, he's making efforts to include children with disabilities. So this is all insider advocacy, and you create a relationship with the target. And you can also go in for other further targeted advocacy. Now, the other method is basically outsider advocacy, outsider target, where you go to the principal and you find he's not being very cooperative. So you sort of tell him that, look, this is not on. You need to include children with disabilities in your system. And then you go out to the media and say how the principal is not being good, he's not being cooperative, he's not helping us. And you sort of even go to the extent of having a demonstration. Now, this is outsider advocacy. It works at times, but in the process, you sort of create bad relationships with the target that you're wanting to advocate with, and in the future, it might not be very, very helpful. And then, of course, media is very, very important because you need to have a massive media campaign to carry forward your advocacy message, your advocacy campaign, and what you're doing. So all this you need to do to make your advocacy campaigns very, very effective. I will just share one successful advocacy campaign that we have in the Right to Vote. And Smita sitting here in the 2019 election was the brand ambassador in a way of the people with disabilities in the voting process. So way back in 2004, there was a petition which was filed in the Bombay High Court asking for accessible elections. And in the same year, in the Supreme Court, the Disability Rights Group went and filed another petition, and the Bombay petition was then transferred to the Delhi Supreme Court on asking for accessible elections for blind people. Now, in this PI in the Supreme Court, the Election Commission filed an affidavit saying that yes, we'll make elections accessible. We'll print ballot papers in Braille. We will train our staff. We will build ramps. And so the process started. In 2009, when the Lok Sabha elections were happening, just before the Lok Sabha election, we had a national campaign on the right to vote in Bombay. And we had DPOs from 17 states coming for this meeting, where we educated them on the Election Commission affidavit, on the Supreme Court order. We gave them questionnaires designed to ask for information through the RTI. These 17 state DPOs went back to their states, and in 12 states, we find a lot of questions using the RTI. And a lot of information was made available to us on what the government was doing to make elections process accessible in 2009. In few states, we found nothing was happening. Maybe we again went to the High Court, like in Andhra Pradesh, in Jharkhand, in UP, when we went back to the High Courts and asked for the implementation. In Punjab, the government said that we cannot have braille ballot papers for all polling stations. So through advocacy only, the groups, the blind groups in Punjab advocated. And said, am I audible?
Yes, please go ahead, Rajiv.
And the Punjab government then said that no, we cannot give braille ballot papers for blind people in all the polling stations. And the groups, the DPOs went to the government, and the government finally had to agree to give braille ballot papers in the polling stations. And now look at 2019, our very own Smita has been the consultant with the Election Commission, and the motto has been leave no one behind. So this is one of the very, very successful advocacy campaigns that have happened in the country. And a host of things were used for it, litigation, advocacy with DPOs at the state level, and the national level advocacy that Smita carried out. So there have been a lot of such campaigns. We have the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act now. Mr. Daryar was talking about the fact that employment rights are not given to people with multiple sclerosis. And the reason for that, he says, is because there is also an attribution of mental illness. But if you look at the law, there is a reservation for people with locomotor disabilities. There is a reservation in employment for people with mental illness. So if multiple sclerosis is being certified as a locomotor disability and as a mental illness, then there's no reason why you shouldn't get employment rights. So this is one area that you could look at in terms of advocacy. There are a lot of issues. Then there is this the high support needs. A lot of people with multiple sclerosis have high support needs, at least the ones I know of. And there is a particular section of the law, section 38, which says that if a person needs high support, he will write to an assessment board, and then the assessment board will escalate it to an authority, and then the authority is going to decide what is to be done. Now, we find some RTI applications in Delhi, and we got to know that, yes, the assessment board has been formed in Delhi, and the authority too has been established at the national level. But the scheme that they have started for high support needs is they will give a one-time grant of 1 lakh rupees to buy a wheelchair. Now, this is not what we want. This is an area for advocacy that you could carry on, that this special assistance for high support needs cannot be confined to just a wheelchair. It could also involve lifetime medicine. It could involve lifetime caregivers. So this is one area that you could look at advocating for. Education is one area that you can look at. Employment, I have already spoken about. The chapter on rights and entitlement gives you a lot of rights: legal capacity, right to vote, right to access the justice system, right to prevention from torture and abuse. So a lot of issues that you can work on as far as advocacy is concerned. I'm really glad also to note that MSSI is now moving towards advocacy, and Javed has been very, very active as far as these two campaigns that he's spoken about. And also of late, you joined the DRC group, as the Disability Rights Consortium group, and some of your members are being trained on the budget and on the Right to Information Act. So there's going to be a lot of activism happening at your end now. You will be filing all these applications, you'll be getting information, you'll be analyzing the information, and then you will be taking up advocacy with the state governments. I think 4 or 5 of you MSSI members are there in this group who are being trained right now. So welcome again. There is the Freedom of Movement Coalition, which is at the moment engaging with the government on accessibility for transport. The government is going ahead and buying electric buses, and some of these electric buses are not accessible for people with orthopedic disabilities, for blind people. So we've started this Freedom of Movement campaign. Please get included into this campaign. We are asking for all new procurement to be accessible for all people with disabilities. So a lot of things happening at the national level, a lot of things happening at the state level. Good. Thank you. That's what I have to say. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you.
It was before 10 minutes, okay?
Thanks a lot for that too. And thank you very much for the brilliant strategies on advocacy towards ensuring the rights of persons with multiple sclerosis. You touched upon the power analysis, and you walked us through identifying targets for advocacy, for our advocacy, and it should not be just all around and have some 3 specific key asks and things like that. And you also touched upon multiple disability aspects and high support needs, through which can be a key advocacy area, and also suggested about the joint advocacy campaign with different disability groups, and thank you very much for that. Also, you mentioned about the success of election campaign by the disability sector. Thank you very much. And next, we would like to talk about the rural advocacy strategies. Like having said about all these kind of measures taken by the disability sector, rural area is completely different, and the issues there are literally different. And I remember a girl with multiple sclerosis whose family had to live in a house without a window, without any windows or doors, and the father was admitted in a hospital, and the mother had to be with the father, and this girl was alone in the house without windows and doors. And then Multiple Sclerosis Society tried to help them, and we made all the windows, doors, and we actually mobilized the community support. We contacted the community around the girl and looked at how the community can support her and provide safety when the mother is not with her. So, a whole lot of issues are there in the community, and we have an eminent speaker here, Dr. Shruti Mahapatra, who really works hard within the rural areas of the country, in Odisha. And the specialty is Dr. Shruti Mahapatra does it as a cheerful advocacy and not looks at it as a dull kind of advocacy, but you can see her as she's a smiling person. Also, a brief introduction about Dr. Shruti Mahapatra. Dr. Mahapatra is the Vice President of Indian Red Cross Society Odisha, Vice Chair Disabled People's International, and Commonwealth Disabled People's Forum, London, UK. She is a member of the National Focus Group under the National Education Program 2020. She has conceptualized the festival Anjali, which is an inclusive and joyful learning model for children with disabilities, and reached about 50,000 children with the concept of inclusive society. The YLTEP program have empowered and developed active citizenship among youth with disabilities and have reached thousands of youths so far. And she has won many awards, and the total number is 75 and more now. And the most recent awards are National Award Nari Shakti Puraskar by the President of India 2021, Devi Awards of Indian Express Group 2020, Kevin Care Special Awards Ability Foundation Chennai 2018, OSA Lifetime Achievement Award by Non-Resident ODIAs of USA 2018, India CSR Award for Innovation and Leadership 2017, Vidya Bhavan Social Service Award awarded by the late President of India, Dr. Pranab Mukherjee, and CNN IBN Real Hero Award 2020. Over to you, Dr. Shruti Mahapatra.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words, Smita. As you said, I'm going to talk about rural advocacy, but so good evening, everyone present here. And thank you, Multiple Sclerosis Society of India, for giving me an opportunity to share whatever experience we have. At the outset, I would like to tell you, advocacy requires a certain strategy, as Rajiv said. And the basic difference between urban and rural advocacy or national and state level advocacy is how we are utilizing minimal resources available at our disposal and how we are able to bring together people who are spread over very different geographical terrains and advocating for a single issue. On your screen, those you can see, I will just explain to you, are 4 cartoons, and they speak a lot about the disability movement, the disability rights movement, and the advocacy movement. Whether in the urban and the rural areas, people with disabilities, even now, despite many international conventions, national laws, are being labeled, and they still suffer barriers. It does not matter how many national and international strong laws you have, unless we are able to reach out to the hearts of the people, broaden their outlook towards life, explain to them how people with disability constitute a part of the diversity of this nation, we will not be able to bring about change at a very fast pace. So, initially we were labeled, we're objects of charity, then those things were removed, and now we have laws. But what is happening? If you travel beyond, I traveled across the 30 districts of Odisha in the year 2018 with a campaign called as Shashakt. Sashakt means to empower. What we try to do is create awareness and do a lot of advocacy with district level governments and block level government functionaries to explain to them why people with disabilities should get their entitlements at ease and not in stressful measures, not in very stressful manners, because of which many of them do not come forward to avail their entitlements also. The present situation is beyond 12 kilometers of the district headquarters in Orissa, and I'm sure this is the situation in most of the states in India. There is nothing in rural Orissa. Whether you talk about health, education, infrastructure, communications availability, as you keep moving further away from the district headquarters, support systems start reducing. And when this is so for general people, you can very well imagine what is the status of people with disabilities. The last cartoon, which you can see on your screen, it shows you a ramp. It shows you people on wheelchairs standing around the ramp. Because the ramp is so steep, the gradient has not been adhered to, that the person on wheelchair needs assistance of 5 to 6 sturdy, burly people to push him or her up. And when that issue is flagged off, when advocacy was done for that, the government officers came back with one standard reply: you people, all that you know is to complain. Now, the question, there is also something we need to deliberate before we move forward, and that is why suddenly we are so much talking about advocacy for disability inclusion. Why today Multiple Sclerosis Society of India wants to take this advocacy agenda ahead. It is because whether at the state level, national level, or the international level, there is an increased space and a global momentum for disability inclusion. And few things we need to remember is, number one is the CRPD in 2016, which, as Rajiv mentioned, it has changed the paradigm of disability, and we have moved to an era which talks about rights. So no more social issues, no more development issue, no more economy issue of economy. Everything about disability is an issue of human rights. The second is the agenda which came in 2015, the Sustainable Development Goals. So now the whole world is talking in the language of development being inclusive. That is, if you leave even one person behind, then as a state, as a country, as a village, or as a globe, or as planet Earth, you cannot move forward. Then there is the UN Disability Inclusion Strategy, which has called up for system-wide change. It talks about inclusion in all aspects. Then we have the interagency guidelines on inclusion of persons with disabilities in humanitarian action. It is every disaster, whether it's man-made or whether it is natural, must involve people with disabilities from the planning to relief, rescue, rehabilitation, and restoration. That is why post-COVID-19, the whole world is talking in terms of building back better, which is nothing but accessibility, and inclusion. Then we have the UN Security Council resolution, which focuses on the inclusion of the disabled in response to armed conflict, a matter which was not highlighted earlier. Then we have a lot of countries which have come forward, organizations for economic cooperation and development, which are very categorically stating disability needs to be concerned, people with disabilities, organization of peoples with disabilities must be part of every dialogue, every discussion. And if we come to India, then we have everything that we need for inclusion. We have a right to Information Act, we have Right to Education Act, which got amended in 2012. We have Rights of Persons with Disability Act, we have an Accessible India campaign. Then we have the National Education Policy. Now we also have Make in India, Start of India, and every, whether it is Skill India, we're always talking about how people with disabilities can be included. But what is the situation? Despite all these talks, we find, when you just look at things, we find, if you all remember, in 2018 end, United Nations came up with its first report of disability and development. And despite huge commitments, a lot of countries coming together, we found that the condition of people with disability was bad. And if we talked about developing countries, and we talked about rural areas and the urban poor areas, the concern of people with disabilities was not getting addressed at all. Then we also found there is lack of data. Now, lack of data is not just about numbers. One of the major reasons, I personally feel, the Right to Education Act was doing us pushing forward. We had Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan. We had many different forms of education we are looking at. What was the basic problem? I personally feel the hugeness of the student population, that is data in number, is not being considered, and the heterogeneity of this population. So when we are talking about education, we are talking about employment, and we are talking about accessibility. You go to the rural areas, If we go to the only word they use is bhinnakhyama, which means differently able. But within the differently able, that the law recognizes there are 21 categories of disabilities. And these 21 categories of children, youth, adult, they have unique functional challenges. Each of these functional challenge requires a unique kind of accommodation, a unique kind of teaching, a unique kind of IP development, a unique kind of reasonable accommodation in the workplace. Unless hugeness and heterogeneity of this population is considered, what cannot happen? So I personally feel this is an opportune time, and at the right moment, the Multiple Sclerosis Society has come forward to initiate advocacy. So wherever, whether it is the spinal cord injury group, which is coming up very strongly, whether it is the blood disorder group who have now started becoming very vocal, so also the multiple sclerosis group should highlight its unique challenges, its unique reasonable accommodations, and especially their invisibility in many contexts. We have to speak about this, create a lot of awareness, and do a lot of advocacy around these unique needs. Only then all these laws and all these schemes and all these facilities can get better implemented. And then, of course, budget. If you go to the rural areas, what happens? The budget comes from the government of India and it goes to the collectorate. In the collectorate, there is a department, there is the DSS, so District Social Service Officer, that and the DPC, the District Project Coordinator. These are the key people who take decision. So our advocacy agenda, which in the district level and at the block level has to involve these government officers. Every letter that we write, every data and statistics that we generate needs to reach these people. Only if this category of people understand our unique challenges, our unique needs, our unique adaptations, our unique reasonable accommodations, can change happen. Now, here I thought about the advocacy that has been done by Swabhiman and its network, Odisha State Disability Network. And these are a few things which came to my mind through our agenda in the last 17 years. We have been able to achieve, we have been able to state a case, we have influenced decisions, we have ended assumptions, we have getting better services, we are being treated equally to some extent. I won't say that we have succeeded. We are being included. We are redressing the balance of power. We are safeguarding interests, and we are getting our rights established. So as I discuss with you quickly, I will tell you how through our activities we have done this. Now to start our work we started with, in fact, it was a huge advocacy in 1999 when ActionAid had invited me to Jagatsinghpur, where Odisha, as all of you know, had suffered a huge cyclone, loss of life, livestock, and also property. So when I was observing, sitting and observing what is happening, they were doing, ActionAid then was doing a livelihood assessment. I found that in that entire process, more than 5,000 people were there. There was no discussion on disability. There were no people with disability also. And that's when I flagged the issue. They invited us. I told them what is happening. By that time, I had got involved with Disabled People's International. I had traveled across the world. And from my mentors in DPI, I had learned many things. That is, when you are talking about disability and you are advocating, you must know the language that you are going to speak. You're talking to a politician, you talk in terms of numbers. Your language has to be numbers. You're talking to a bureaucrat, you talk in the language of development. You're talking to philanthropic and other international organizations. So different strategies I learned, and we were applying all of this. So when we formally structured Swabhiman, our aim was we have to advocate. Because then I'm talking about 1999 Odisha, people with disabilities were completely invisible. There was no dialogue or discourse around disability. And in Orissa, as all of you know, 84.4% of the population lives in rural areas. So none of these people with disabilities had any rights, nor were their rights being respected. Then in one of the villages that we visited, we found that the laws were being distributed in hundreds and thousands of copies. But then a postmaster came to me and said, ma'am, you see this law that we are being given. This, I cannot understand. I'm the highly educated person of this village. And I cannot understand what technical language is written in this. And then an idea struck. So lot of our work, what happens? When we want to be successful in our advocacy, we cannot sit in a room and we take a decision. It is very important that we go to the field. So what we did is we wrote this law in simple language. We read it out to the gardener, to a domestic help, to a farmer, and we put in a lot of pictures. And 1.5 lakhs copies of that law we distributed so that people could understand the law. And this was, then we advocated with the government. So then disability was in the WCD department. And after going through long discourses, long advocacy of 2.5, 3 years, finally they published about 5 lakhs copies of simplified act and distribute. We discovered that advocacy is not possible. One organization cannot achieve much. So we formed a network in Odisha, Odisha State Disability Network. Our partners are in the 30 districts. See, at the state level, and when you go down, generally funds are, at least in my case, funds are very low. So how do you do a lot of work in minimal funds using local resources, but achieving big targets? That was our path to take. So what we did is we identified 27 NGOs and individuals at the district level. We told them to identify partners at the block level. They identified some partners at the village level, tahsil level, and other levels. So what we did is we passed on the information to the district partner, district person communicated with the block, and so on, it went down. That is the reason there are some activities we have done and we have been very successful. So some of the Odisha State Disability Network activities, advocacy activities where we have been grandly successful is the single window approach. So in 2003, we met the ADM of Raurkela, whose name is Karthikeyan Pandyan. And I told him, you see, the basic problem with people is they have to run to 10 different places. So why don't you provide one single window where they will get their disability certificate, pension, income certificate, bus, train certificates, everything, the assistive devices assessment, disability assessment, everything under one roof. So he provided us the support and we were able to conduct a camp, and in 1.5 days we showed them how we could reach out to 765 people from interior villages of in and around Raurkela in Sundargarh district, which is a tribal dominated district of the state of Odisha. Then when this collected, he saw results. Then when he went to Mayurbhanj as the collector, he converted this program, called it Window of Hope, and replicated it all across his district in Mayurbhanj, which is also a tribal dominated rural district of Odisha, and won the national award from the President of India. Government of Odisha adopted this program, and today it is called the Bhimo Bhoi Abhiyan. Bhimo Bhoi is a very old Odia saint who was blind, and they have named it Bhimo Bhoi Abhiyan, and it is happening every year in every block of Odisha. Once it happens. So how we were able to do this? We had no resources. To be successful, it is very important to respect your network partners, to make them equal partners in everything that you do, to develop partnership with some, at least one or two good government officers with whom your wavelength matches. get resources from them, and all of you contributed. So while Swabhiman raised some resources for people to travel from different districts to come there, another local organization raised our stay and our food. So compiling all these resources, we were able to bring about change. Similarly, though the first disability political convention was organized by Javed in New Delhi, my good friend Javed, late Javed Abidi, they did it in the evening. So I always teased him saying, see, we are the first, because we were able to organize our political convention in the morning at 10 a.m. And for the first time, all political party representatives sat and they discussed with people with disabilities what should go into political manifesto. And the year 2004, when the elections happened, Odisha was the only state where 4 political parties had published their national manifestos were there, but in Odisha, when they brought it out, there were also disability related points there. Then appointment of disability commissioner in Odisha is 100% success of disability network partners. Simultaneously, at the same time, when we were holding meetings in the capital city of Bhubaneswar, in 30 districts and in 314 blocks, people gave representations to their respective collectors and in the blocks to their block development offices. The same demand raised in 3 places. Why? When women commission has a woman, when this has this, why don't we have an independent commission, number 1? Why, how a government, the first thing was WCD department, Women and Child Development Department has so many things to look at. So how the same secretary who is the commissioner also of disability give justice? Will he find the time? The second was, how will he give justice when all the other secretaries where violation of rights happen are his friends and colleagues? And the third was a request that the person should be a person with disability. That was not actually looked into, but at least Odisha got a disability commissioner. We were also successful in similar manner to get in 2014 the first minister of disability, who was Minister of Energy, to be designated as Minister Disability to give it visibility, and moved on from there to have a separate department, and today one independent department which looks into disability. And it's census also we were very successful. I'd like to bring you to the last part, telling you how we have been successful. Step 1, knowledge is power. It is very essential once we decide that we want to be advocates for a cause, we should be very well read. We should read as much as possible. In the context of disability rights, we must know what are the international conventions like CRPD, what is RPWD Act, RTI Act, RTE Act, what are our respective state rules, what are all the policies that the government has at the national and state level. Only a well-read person and a well-read network will be able to achieve a advocacy agenda successful. Number 2, Odisha State Disability Network has always believed, and I personally believe, this is my personal agenda, success is a collective effort. The minute one organization like Swabhiman or one individual like Shruti starts saying that I am the person who brought about change, that's the end of your advocacy agenda and of success. You want to be successful, you have to give equal respect to all your partners. So when we were lobbying for this independent disability commissioner in the state of Odisha, we ensured that people who came from many villages of Odisha, from many districts, we divided everybody into 5-6 groups. One group going to the chief minister, one to the speaker, one to the leader of opposition, one to the chief justice of the state of Odisha. So everybody, it was not one person who was running to all these heads of government. So everybody was feeling involved. Everybody felt that his or her voice is important. Third is identifying key issues. Already Rajiv has said a lot about this. I don't need to say. It's very important to identify local issues. What is the most 10 important problems of my area, my village, my block, my district? Sit together as a group divide ourselves into small groups, debate and discuss each of the 10 points, and find out which 3 are the most important and take them up one by one. Step 4, very important. Before we do any advocacy, it is very important to do some research, survey, awareness, and have a lot of information or data with us. When we were doing the Sashakt campaign, we wrote to all our partners, and even before the accessible accessible elections of 2000, taking you back to 2014. We started finding out how people's rights were being violated. They go to the election office to file their candidature, and they were being harassed. Collected a lot of newspaper articles, found out how rights are being violated, found out also that how political parties are paying a lot of money to people, and even they were providing people to be carried in the panchayat elections. They will pay 2, 3, 4 people to carry the oldest member to vote. So we analyzed all that, wrote it down, and then shared whatever were our findings, and then went and lobbied with individual collectors, BDOs, the sarpanchs, and blah blah blah. Step
Shruti,
5,
you to
we finished.
finish off in another 1 minute or so.
Yeah, we just finished.
Yeah, thank
Then
you.
advocacy strategy, Rajiv has already talked at length about that. I don't need to. And another very important strategy step of any advocacy agenda is the follow-up and debrief. The debriefs have helped a lot in finding out what was wrong in the previous strategy. For example, once we found out that we are missing out on the local resources from where we can raise funds. And in the next time we started going to the sarpanch, we found out where there are funds in other departments, and we were able to garner that and do our advocacy steps. So I would like to conclude here saying that since you have decided you are going to take up advocacy in a big manner, rural advocacy is not much different than advocacy at national or state level, but it is very important to have a strong network, a lot of people with you, because the more your voice, the more your noise, the more government tends to listen to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Shruti. That was really awesome that you shared your personal, experience, work experience with regard to the cyclone advocacy, advocacy in connection to cyclone in Odisha, and also to share with us all these advocacy steps. And you rightly said that people should get their rights at ease and not in a stressful situation. And of course, information is power. And thank you for touching upon the need for incorporation of all the international instruments, and also to respect the local resources, use the local resources, respect the network, develop our network, and many other advocacy strategies. Thank you very much. Now we move on to our next speaker, who is an eminent personality, Dr. Jyoti Bajpal. Dr. Jyoti Bajpal completed her PhD in 2004 from IIT Bombay. She was among the top 2 to have completed MTech in biotechnology from Lucknow University, and also was the gold medalist in Mssi Physics and BSc from the same university. In addition, she completed the Executive General Management Program from IIM and many other prominent programs. And she is a genetic counselor with a certificate of Level 2 Board of Genetic Counseling of India. And she's currently associated as consultant with the Organization for Rare Diseases India. Previously, she has experience in various operational and management roles over 19 years in different organizations such as Strand Life Sciences, Core Diagnostics, OncoStem Diagnostics, Caring DX at Mahajan Imaging, etc. And she continues to consult with different research and scientific institutions, and she believes in her ideology to be a bridge between scientists, clinicians, engineers, and common persons to serve humankind. Over to you, Dr. Jyoti, on the advocacy strategies for persons with rare diseases and the achievements you had so far.
Thank you, Smita, for your kind introduction. Can I share the screen?
Do you need help?
Yeah, because saying most disabled participant is screen sharing. Can I give?
Javed, can you give admin rights to Dr. Jyoti?
Doctor, okay, just a minute. Your ID Jyoti BD.
Yes, correct.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I have made you the co-host.
Okay.
Now you will be able to share that.
Yes, I can do that. Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So as I was saying, thank you, Smita, for so kind words, and good evening, everyone, and giving me this opportunity to be part of this group of eminent personalities. Actually, all of you have years of experience in patient advocacy. I have just started working with ORTI, and I am just taking baby steps towards this patient advocacy group and patient advocacy. You can say the steps towards patient advocacy. So as I said that I am taking baby steps. At the moment, I am actually representing. Just one second. I'm just trying to go to yes. I think I am able to. Can you see the screen now? Just one second. I think I'm. Yeah, I can do that. So yeah, so I am representing Mr. Prasanna Shirol here, who is the founder of Organization of Rare Diseases India. And I will be going through a little bit of basics, but already all of you know about it, because I was told that what is RD advocacy and how whatever we have achieved so far. So what I'm going to say that as of all of you are well aware of rare diseases, whether it is multiple sclerosis or any other disease. Many more are being reported here by many other clinicians. It's not just that one disease, there are 700 rare diseases which are already discovered, and we are actually, just one second, yeah. I'm finding a little bit of technical this thing here. So just doing that. Yeah. So yeah, what I'm saying that if we consider these disorders as for an individual, they are like, say, they are supposed to be rare. But when we consider the absolute numbers and when we consider them together, we know that a very large population is affected because of these rare disorders. And there are various types of advocacy groups here, where what I'm trying to say is that various kinds of advocacy groups are there, just to give the classification of advocacy groups. But when it comes to rare diseases, what we have seen that most of the times these advocacy groups are formed by the families or the family members of the patients. And what we see that these are generally non-profit organizations, and the focus is on specific diseases or aspects of healthcare. Or maybe the specific disease related to particular rare disorder, just something like you can say multiple sclerosis or any other disease. Now, the major roles played by these patient advocacy groups are basically to understand the disease of the patient, and also to create the awareness and participate in research activities, working with government on policies to improve the care and also to make the financial aids available to the patients. Most importantly, facilitating communications between the various stakeholders, which is like patients, practitioners, corporate, media, and other stakeholders, to identify the causes, to work towards them, to rectify and to get the solutions for those causes. Next slide is nothing but we just want to, I mean, all of you know about it, that various kind of assistances can be provided by these patient advocacy groups to the patients and their families. Not going into the details of those kind of what assistance we can provide, because all of us are aware of that. What I want to say here, that what is the need of patient advocacy group in India? As we know that we are a huge population, and hence the rare disease is actually not rare when it comes to the absolute numbers, as I said earlier. We are supposed to do a lot, starting from seeing the symptoms, to diagnose the disease, to arrange for the funds, to get the approvals from regulatory authorities, and to help the patient and the caregivers with their with various kind of say assistances. So as I said, that we are a huge population, so the work also, the task also becomes humongous when it comes to do all these activities. And for that, patient advocacy group play a vital role here. They work toward providing the resources, the various kind of resources to the patients and the caregivers. At the same time, they also create awareness among patients and medical fraternities about not just the diseases, but how to get the help for treatment and management of the disease. And basically to help in early diagnosis, which is very, very important if we want to if we want to manage the disease at an early stage, the treatment management. Of course, also making the drugs affordable and also the treatment affordable to the patients, also getting the useful regulatory framework and improving it, participating in research activities to discover the new ways to help the patients, and also come up with the new treatment methods or treatment management. So it's like it is to be a strong united voice for all rare diseases. It's not just one rare disease which I'm talking about. When I say strategy or when I say rare disease, I'm talking about multiple sclerosis as well as all other diseases which are supposed to be rare diseases. And the idea, the main goal is, as we have heard Dr. Mahapatra and other doctors in previous talks, that the idea is to make the resources available, same resources available to all the patients, to all the rare people with rare diseases. Now, what I'm saying, that we have got a feel what we are doing in when we are creating patient advocacy groups, and what we are doing, like when we are trying to come up with the ideas and the policies to help the rare people with rare diseases. What we have achieved so far as a patient advocacy group for various kind of rare diseases. Of course, all advocacy groups associated with various types of rare diseases, they are working, they are doing their best to provide the best to the patients and the caregivers. To understand the way so far and going forward, what we can do if we learn about the voyage of a patient advocacy group, like what I'm going to talk about in coming next slides about organization for rare diseases in India. If we understand how they work, what was their journey, we will understand what we are supposed to do as a patient advocacy group and what are the challenges and how we can face those challenges. So here, coming to ORDI started working with a vision of caring for rare. They say, all of us say that I care for rare. And now ORDI has uncountable feathers in their hat today. To name some, as you can see on the slide, that patient advocacy, medical and mass awareness, patient support, participating in clinical trials, doing the RD camps and helping the patients and the families with RD helpline, participating in clinical research, as I said, and national and international collaborations to make the masses aware about rare diseases and create a wave among the people to work towards the rare diseases and help the patients. Now here, as we discussed earlier, that patient advocacy groups are generally founded by the family members, and Organization for Rare Diseases India was founded by Mr. Prasanna Shirol, who is a determined father of a baby girl, Nikki, who is India's first Pompe patient. Mr. Prasanna started Pompe Foundation, an organization for rare diseases in India, and he also works for LSTSS. So as we see that there is emotional as well as practical aspects involved when these PAGs or patient advocacy groups are formed. Now here, the journey of this patient advocacy group, ORDI, started, and then there were challenges. But as you know, the obstacles in the way of a river flow, they actually do not stop the water flow, they actually accelerate the water flow. So the challenges which ORDI faces in the beginning, that they started to focus towards national advocacy, and they started working with various governments. But it was like say, it was not that easy. And that those challenges actually became learnings. And what we understood that we should first focus towards a smaller goal. So we should focus towards one state, and ORDI decided to work with one government with a focus in Karnataka state. And the goal was to meet the unmet needs of rare disease patients in India. And then ORDI was founded and started in the year 2013. Next milestone, or you can say the first milestone which ORDI achieved, was that they decided, I mean, you know that the definition of rare disease is different in different countries depending on the population and the prevalence of the diseases. ORDI proposed in 2015 that 1 in 5,000 individual is a rare disease. ICMR defined it as 1 in 2,500 individuals in 2017. And in 2018, the definition of orphan drug under rules stated that orphan drug means a drug which is intended to treat a condition which affects less than 5 lakh persons in India. So in this way, what is important, as we see that we first need to define what is rare disease. And that was the first achievement which ORDI achieved here. Then the next milestone was rare disease helpline. The rare disease helpline, it became an interface between organization, patients and clinicians. And it started helping patients, it's like say day in and day out. So that is also very important, to get connected with your patient, to understand their needs and to help them. Then the next goal was which was achieved by ORDI was RDCCC, which is Rare Disease Care Coordination Centers, a unique concept, which is again to connect the patients, hospital, doctors, genetic counselors, treatment options, caregivers, educationists, diagnostic people, clinical trial people, everyone, to support the patients with diagnosis, treatment and supportive care, management for special interventions, follow-ups, and give the hope to families, to give the smiles to families with expert advice, access to potential treatment options, and hence enhancing the quality of life of the patients as well as the caregivers. So these RDCCs are very, very helpful in helping the patients with the rare diseases. Next, this is, I mean, just wanted to show that this is the first RDCC center at Bangalore, which was initiated by ORDI. Then next achievement was disease-specific clinics, and it is the Baptist Hospital in Bangalore, which is working towards it. The next was ORDI facilitated humongous task of bringing relevant people together on one forum to start discussions on disease policy. And that was facilitated by ORDI in Karnataka. And the primary discussions on rare disease policy started in Karnataka. Next, ORDI as a PAG worked with researchers and pharma industries to get the best drugs possible, to get the best treatment ways possible, to help the people with rare disorders. Then there were camps, CMEs, of course, which are all necessary for creating awareness. And these are ongoing activities which were there, which are there, which will be there. Next, which is one of the very important tasks for a PAG, for rare disorder is to provide education to young geneticists and also to others about rare diseases. Very, very important task of patient advocacy groups. ORDI achieved this goal last year. Actually, it's one of the largest series of webinars which was conducted on various topics related to rare diseases, and genetics. 52 experts presented on 39 topics, and 13 sessions were there, and hundreds of people attended this webinar series and learned about rare disorders. And it was, you can say, it was a mass awareness created among the people. Next, it is important, as we have heard in previous talks also, that different PAGs are working, but it's not that only one PAG can make an impact individually, but it is important, as it was said in previous talk, that make more noise, make more voice. So if we come together, all the PAGs come together, then it becomes impactful. So this slide shows how ORDI associates with various PAGs and work together to support each other for this noble cause of helping our rare warriors. Of course, ORDI has also been associated with international partners, and international partners have also extended their support to achieve the goal of IKEA for rare. Another series to bring disease-specific awareness was the next milestone. And of course, as all of us have said, that awareness is one of the most important aspects of rare disorders to make the masses aware. Next, it is very important to gather the like-minded people at one place, to be together, to talk together, to think together. Race for 7 is actually a festival to run together for rare diseases awareness. Race for 7 has created a wave of awareness about rare diseases among all. When I say among all, which means families of the affected persons, patients, and the common person. In fact, it has become a ritual in the month of February for all of us to run for this noble cause, Race for 7. In fact, COVID also could not stop it, and all of us, wherever possible, in our apartment complexes, in our gardens, on roads, we ran for this noble cause because we understand the need to help the people with the rare diseases. Just few glimpses of Race for 7, which says glimpses of enthusiasm and hope, glimpses of support from various celebrities as well, glimpses of participation from various fields, and glimpses of encouragement and faith in ORDI, a patient advocacy group which is dedicated to provide better life and smiles to the rare people with rare diseases. It provides sort of guiding steps to all the rare diseases patient advocacy groups to come up with successful advocacy programs. Few more pictures just to show how Race for 7 is effective, and few more. What I want to showcase is that we need to bring people together to make them understand the rare diseases and to face this challenge. This is not, this is not something which we should avoid. We should face this challenge, and we should become a determined patient advocacy group to do that. Of course, when one takes pledge and works towards a full dedication, one's efforts are recognized. Same happened with ORDI also, nationally and internationally. These recognitions encouraged people in the team as well as the common masses to understand the importance of working for rare diseases. In a nutshell, if we see the journey of ORDI till date, this is a journey of patient advocacy group. It's not just ORDI, but any patient advocacy group, which can be MS or any other patient advocacy group. So what you can see, in 2009, we started, and various steps of creating awareness, individual meetings, discussions with the stakeholders, activities, judicial interventions, and activities by stakeholders. What we came up to one RD policy in March 2021. This journey continues with a message to have patience and continue moving step by step. because it is a humongous task. And it's like, say, we are various stakeholders to work together: government, doctors, judiciary, media, and many more, to come up with policies and drawing the attention of people towards this cause. We need to come together, holding hands together. In the end, what I want to say that bon voyage to all our patient advocacy groups. Our journey will certainly be successful. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jyoti, for walking us through the challenges as well as the successes of advocacy efforts of patient advocacy groups and the successes of Organization for Rare Diseases India. Among the successes, you mentioned about the definition of rare disease, which is really a great milestone, and also to come up with a helpline for people with rare diseases and rare disease policy at the national level, and about the awareness activities like Race for 7. To tell you, like Multiple Sclerosis Society of India Chennai chapter is participant of Race for 7 for the past all the past years. So
Yes, yes.
we are actually collaborating with Organization for Rare Diseases, and you also touched upon the multiple dimensions that need to be focused for a patient advocacy group apart from the government authorities, like the pharmaceutical companies or the healthcare professionals, the doctors, the hospitals, the community support, the caregivers. So all these are exclusive for us when compared to the traditional disabilities. Thank you for bringing all these points up. Thank you very much once again. And now we move on to our last panelist, Mr. P. Rajashekaran, who will be talking about the advocacy efforts in employment for persons with disabilities. Raja is an engineer, MBA from Mumbai, and MS Public Policy from Carnegie
Mellon University. Yeah.
Carnegie Mellon. MEL.
Yeah. Mellon University, USA. And Raja's prior experience is as a business and development sector practitioner with over 24 years of experience in incubating and leading assignments in public and private sectors. Raja is co-founder of VSESH and is an expert member of national and state level committee working groups on disability policy. He is part of the founding team of the Wheelchair Basketball Federation of India and is a governing council member in Vidyasagar, Chennai. VSESH's work in disability inclusion has won several recognitions, most prestigious one being the 2016 National Award from the President of India for Best Placement Agency for Persons with Disabilities. Over to you, Raja.
Yeah, thank you, Smita, for all the encouraging words. And it's extremely privileged to be here as a part of this panel with all eminent speakers, listening to Rajiv and Jyoti here and Shruti here. Absolutely big pleasure for me to be here. As employment comes almost in general from education, the society, it comes in the end. So it is good to also be the last speaker trying to share our thoughts on employment related advocacy. I've been an ally to this sector and the people in the sector for the last 12 years. All our learnings has come from entirely by interaction with people and understanding their needs. That is where we derive our understanding and expertise, etc. That enriches our own practice, and reflecting whatever we learn by interacting with people with disabilities to organizations and allies in organizations. Finding that ally in an organization at any layer in the organization is where we are looking at change. We have always looked at employment as a litmus test of inclusion. So as we worked, all of us in the group, we think of, if we are not able to get people jobs, then our mission is really not fulfilled. Getting everybody employment is a fundamental thing that everyone wants. It's basic right, but there are several barriers, and getting that first job becomes hugely challenging. So we are always focused singularly on the mission of seeing where are those barriers, invisible, visible, attitudinal, all of those barriers, and seeing how systematically we can address to eliminate those barriers. So our advocacy is around employment, our advocacy is singularly focused on what are the barriers that individual faces, and that those barriers come to light as we interact, as we put our put our work to practice. By interacting with the individuals, we come to know, oh, this is a barrier, and that's over a period of time. I'll be sharing some form of some approach on how we have been able to address those barriers. It is a learning process. We remain permanent students on this topic, and we continue to stay focused and continue to learn. Firstly, our engagement is with organizations. We recognize that organizations exist not to hire people; they exist to run a business, they run to serve their customers. So that is the fundamental understanding that we have. So we never advocate to force people to hire, because the organizations don't exist only to hire people, they exist to serve customers and do their business. So but if we recognize that if they have to hire, we want to show them, yes, there is this immense talent pool here too. And there is, of course, you might have read documentation about the advantages of hiring a person with disability, but here there is talent pool, there is talent, and you can if you hire and get access to this talent pool, not only you are improving your own business outlook, you are also standing better vis-a-vis your peer competition in the space. That is what we do on an ongoing basis with organizations, to show them the light that there is potential pool. This is how one needs to do. What is the method? It is not that hard as you would think, and accordingly, wherever we get a foot in the door, we try to use that foot in the door to see how we can advocate for more and more employment, more types of impairment across more business lines, etc. On that note, let me share a slide to talk to you about very briefly how we go about our doing what we do on a daily basis. So advocacy happens when we talk about employment. I'm essentially talking about employment in the private sector here. That is where our area of work and what we can call as learning and expertise exists. So we advocate onto three segments. We advocate on a policy segment where our main counterparts are the senior management. You meet at the highest level, the CEOs, the MDs, or very senior leaders in the organization. Our advocacy topics are around, do you have an equal opportunity policy? If you might have a policy which is global, but you need a policy as for the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act. You need a policy specifically addressing the needs of an individual with disability. If by law, by compliance with the law, you need that. Now, it is not just about the policy. We say that we try to advocate to them that it's about making sure the rank and file of the organization, from the guard to the board, people know what exactly this policy is. So you got to communicate, apart from the law itself asks you to disseminate and display the policy so that as many people get to know about it. But you got to build your own communication strategy such that most people get to know what exactly this policy is. How do we ensure the operationalizing of the policy? It also requires budget to be allocated. If you're having a policy, and if the policy requires reasonable accommodation, adjustment to be provided, and also some leaders to sponsor certain in a directional manner, certain progressive policy measures. There's need for leaderships to come forward and sponsor. There's need for budget to be allocated in a centralized manner, not in a business. Otherwise, cost of accommodations itself becomes a bias in a hiring decision. To avoid that, we advocate on ensuring there is centralized budget for reasonable accommodation, centralized budget for running your awareness campaigns, sensitization activities, etc. Our advocacy then is about how do we strategize, what to do first. Organizations have to create an enabling environment, have to ensure accessibility is in place, digital accessibility, physical accessibility.
We've overshot the time.
Sorry. Yeah.
Please go ahead.
I have to ensure that there is an engagement framework within the organization where sensitization, culture change, etc. is happening. Then we have to do something which is sometimes affirmative also, because when you're talking about employment, there may be skill issues which you may need to address at that stage so that you are able to bring in. So all of this have to be done. So we advocate on giving them a framework on how to do, what to do first, where they are from a maturity level in terms of progressing inclusion of persons with disabilities in their own agenda. So that's on the policy front. But left alone to a CEO, the policies are in place. Practices also may need to be really relooked. That's where our advocacy also will need to be continued with HR managers, the facility managers, training, L&D teams, in order to essentially the whole objective of advocacy at the practice level is to challenge convention, because usual route of hiring and career progression is essentially not fully inclusive, but there has been a trend, there has been something which says this works. And so the organizations do not want to disrupt that kind of an approach and continue with the convention. For example, if you talk about recruitment, most of the approaches are about filtering. You get 100 people and you need to select 5. So you have tests and other processes where you filter that 100 to get finally 10, and from the 10 you select 5. So all these 100 may be eligible, but you end up selecting 5 because that's how the talent pool or the labor market operates. But same approach may not be possible here. You cannot. Whereas in the non-disabled pool, you can you have the luxury of making a wrong, making a decision where you are not selecting a deserving candidate in case of in this pool where the pool is limited. You have to and every person needs the same opportunity. You cannot afford to take a risk of rejecting a deserving candidate. So the whole question of ensuring there is no elimination in the process. If we try and advocate to ensure that your selection process is fitness for purpose. If the job requires a certain skill, your selection process should exactly mirror that certain skill. If it is a job, for example, we have a lot of aptitude testing in the selection process where people have to do complicated maths, logarithm scales, etc. Whereas the job would be a fundamental basic banking process. There's no connection with an aptitude test. So why at all have a testing process? So those conventions, those testing methods and approaches need to be challenged. That kind of advocacy can happen only when we interact with the HR leaders, who are the decision makers, and etc. So this whole thing about is day-to-day practice on the practice front. Advocacy is on a day-to-day practice, both from a culture, also the culture change aspect, as well as in ensuring what is to be done from a accommodation and reasonable accessibility standpoint. Final advocacy is on a day-to-day with recruiters, an operating level, with team members who are actually managers of managing teams, etc. It is a continuous engagement, even after having policy and practice. When the hiring happens, when the hiring decision has to be made, you could see, bias creep in. There could be cold feet developed in making a selection decision. That is when our advocacy is about very, very clearly simple about being objective. What is the hiring? What is the need of the role? And if a person is not being selected, the exact reason for not being selected is what we advocate for from the recruiter and the hiring manager to clearly state. It cannot be, oh, this person is not a culture fit, or we are not sure how much how we can accommodate. We are not sure. There could be some medical issue that might crop up. These are strict no. So for that, how do we plug that gap is ensuring that there is sharpness in the selection process, and the reason for not rejecting is clearly articulated by the hiring manager or the recruiter. It is a constant activity. It is also a way to, like I said, getting a foot into the door, trying to change the mindsets at the hiring level, engaging with them, being very having objective conversations so that the talent pool, each individual, it's about each individual we are talking about gets the opportunity. The last part of our advocacy would be on the shop, on the floor. There could be, especially in cases of invisible conditions, in invisible conditions, yes, the accommodation framework is set and people are able to, once provided, reasonably able to adjust and ask for those accommodations, get those accommodations if all the policy and practice is in place, and things might work well. But if it is an invisible condition, people there would always a thin line, dividing line between what is an accommodation and what is an HR, could be an HR incident. You know, the person, I'm aware of cases where a person with multiple sclerosis had a condition, you know, they went ahead and engaged that individual, thought, great, the communication skill is fine, let's hire the individual. When the person starts working, you know, the person also has a vision, some form of vision loss, which, as a result of which, working on screen with Excel sheets became a little difficult, which was misjudged and misinterpreted by the group as, oh, this is a very, very simple task. They gave a very simple task and the person could not perform. It was misjudged, and misperception was, you know, attitude is not appropriate. Let's put the individual onto a PIP. So that is where, you know, the advocacy comes in place to show, yeah, you know, this is the invisible condition, and it is an accommodation that the individual might need. If the person does not know an alternate form of using, you know, of accommodating for the vision loss, seeing how you can put onto a job role which does not require the kind of vision that is required, or how the individual can also be equipped or empowered to you know, learn, you know, acquire skills like a screen reading software or a magnifier, so that the vision loss accommodation is taken care of. So with the sum and substance is advocacy has to operate at all levels in the organization. Important aspect is we are not forcing anyone to hire. We are only advocating for the organization. If there is a hiring that is happening, it has to be very, very equal, on an equal footing, and other than equal footing, organization might need, as the responsibility of the organization is also to do more, ensure, especially to address some of the societal gaps because of affirmative action or the positive discrimination that I'm talking about, is what the organization is supposed to be doing. So that's with that broad framework, I hand it back to you, Smita.
Thank you very much, Raja, for sharing your in-depth experience in working with corporates with regard to employing persons with disabilities, and employment being a very serious, issue for persons with multiple sclerosis than any other people with disability. I may say so. So you mentioned certain strategies about not forcing the corporates, but more, and also to be objective in case of any issue and approach proactively. So these are our takeaways. And before handing over to Sanket back to a quick question and answer session with the participants, I have a question to you. You mentioned about the equal opportunity policy and also training corporates about the attitude, the way they should approach persons with disabilities, etc. What were the challenges that you faced when you had to frame equal opportunity policy for VSAGE, and also the challenges that you see the corporates are facing when they are framing theirs? So this is a question to you. And one question to Dr. Jyoti before I give it back is, can Dr. Jyoti suggest some shortcut or smart strategies to include multiple sclerosis into the rare disease agenda of the Government of India? Thank you very much. Over to you, Raja.
Sure. So on the equal opportunity policy, there are various standards, templates available on, you have organizations which are published, very, very easily available. One can actually pick it up, put the template, simply find and replace, and you are compliant. But that is not going to meet the spirit of what we are really wanting to achieve. So the biggest challenge we find is organizations are going with a letter of the law, in a hurried manner, putting that across, and they say we are compliant. But the spirit is not met in multiple ways, unless and until there's good in-depth consultation done, that people know exactly what is meant by equal opportunity policy. There is all jobs. There is a provision related to jobs being identified for persons with disabilities. They just say all jobs are being made for persons with disabilities. It does not talk about how do we go about the process of ensuring that there is a job analysis being done, and so that there is each job we are able to clearly carve out, what is the essential function, so that the recruiter can actually make a decision entirely based on the ability and fitment to the role. So that is the first challenge that we face when it has to have good consultation. It also has to not look to be a standalone policy. The equal opportunity policy has to be looked in tandem with your employment, recruitment policy, your medical reimbursement policy, your travel policy, the leave policy, etc. So leaves, for example, if you take, there is 12 casual leaves, and there is, of course, earned leaves. But for a person, say, with who's a blood disorder, or even in conditions like MS, where you need blood disorder, means the person has to visit a hospital, get an appointment. If the person needs every week appointment, all your 10 or 7 or 12 leaves go away in getting that accommodation met. So leave as an accommodation has to be very, very clearly be mentioned there and be prioritized as an accommodation very clearly in the policy, which if you really do a job of cut paste, we do not get those kind of provisions. So consultation, getting that element of specificity, and making sure all the other allied HR policies are also seen from a disability equity lens is important. The last part one is about equality and equity. From an equal opportunity policy is about equality, but the challenge we always find is, yes, we can drive them towards equality, but there is also a need for, because employment comes after your education and higher education, that's when employment comes. There is a need for also seeing what can be done from an equity standpoint, which is affirmative action, which is positive discrimination, train and hire, mentorships, etc. So getting people to have those provisions at least spelled out, so that the selection process, career progression processes are also provide for equity, is also a little bit of a challenge which we face, which by taking a standard policy, we do not get those inbuilt. Yeah. Back to you, Smita. I hope it addresses some of the question that you had in mind.
Great. Thank you very much, Raja. Over to Dr. Jyoti.
Yes, Smita, I think your question was, is there any smart strategy or shortcut to come up with the policies with the government and all? So yeah, of course, smart ways can be there. You can come up with, like the ORDI did, came up with the definition of rare disease, and also coming up with the groups like RDCCC, Rare Disease Care Coordination Center. All those things can be done. But when it comes to policy and regulatory affairs, of course, we are supposed to come up with the best policies, and for that it is required to bring all the stakeholders together. That is which is very important. If you say shortcut, there is no shortcut. That is there. There is no shortcut. Yes, of course, a lot of effort and bringing together. There has to be a good attitude to bring all the stakeholders together. That can be the smart way to bring everyone together, to bring all PhDs together, but no shortcut. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Jyoti. And
Hi, Smita. I think I'll take over. We've already short our time limit.
I thank all the eminent panelists, and over to you, Mamta.
Yeah, so I thought I'll just take it up. So good evening, everyone. It's my privilege to thank all our esteemed speakers, Mr. Dharyal, Mr. Rajiv, Dr. Shruti, Dr. Jyoti, and Mr. Raja, for their presence and contribution in making this webinar successful. Thank you, Anne, for highlighting our activities and campaigns in such a compact manner. Thank you, Anjali, for that energetic and interesting introduction on World MS Day. Thank you, Javed, for showcasing the World MS Day and the advocacy work undertaken by MSSI. Thank you, Sanket and Smita, for the smooth flow of the webinar. And now, since it's our conclusive, I won't say the last, it's a conclusive webinar or a program of this whole 1 month activities of World MS Day 2020. A big salute to all our chapter heads, secretaries, World MS Day Working Committee, our MS persons, their caregivers, volunteers for their wholehearted participation in this campaign. Heartfelt gratitude to Sanofi for their support, without which this campaign wouldn't have been so successful. Last but not the least, I appreciate the hard work put in by our communication manager, who's Kritika, for keeping the social media handles alive with an average of 4 posts daily on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Everyone, please visit our handles. And thank you, Kritika, and thank you once again to everyone. So that's it. So all the others, if any questions are there, please enter it into the chat box, and we will send it to our speakers and mail it to the required people who have asked the questions. Okay, so thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Bye.
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 Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.